Time Management for Student by Dr. Vijay Aggarwal. Chapter number 1, Your Success and the Time. He was dreaded by the professor in college while the people at home were fed up with him. No one knew when he would check out or return to his home or what he would to do all day. Perhaps he was the only one who knew of it. His mind was inclined towards sports, and other than that, most of his time would be spent in mischief. If one had any reason to commend him, it would be for unfaltering interest in the game of badminton. He was the captain of the college badminton team. As he was easily the best player in the college, once there was an instance when he had to face a senior student in the game of badminton, and as usual, the game being his fault, he didn't lose. After the game, he went ahead to meet his opponent and assured him that he would meet him once again, which was not what he would usually do. He kept up the assurance. He met him again, getting in quite well with his newfound friend. He kept on meeting and spending time with him regularly. Unbelievable, thought his professors. It was hard for them to accept the change in his behavior. Yet, they thought it be the same boy serious as he was known to them. Believe it or not, within a span of just 3 years, he went to top the merit list of a state level competitive examination and proved many of prophecy wrong. As wayward as he was, what would he do? But then he had reason to boast and walk with his head held high as he had proven himself. Let us take a peep into the life of another student. He was too sharp for his age, bright and brilliant in the studies, and would never have to memorize a topic for the second time. Anything he learned would be retained forever. But had it not been for the strictness of his elder brother, which had proven to be a blessing in disguise, he would have rather not studied at all. It was only because of the perseverance of his elder brother that he inevitably stood first in class. He went on to become a doctor, which was always expected of him. He did not look forward to a government job. Instead, he established his own clinic and became a private medical practitioner. His practice was well received, and he went to build up political house on a grand estate. Within a few years of his practice, he became well known in the regions as an able to reliable medical practitioner. This would be summarize his story. For now, if I am right, the first question that would strike your mind would be, was there anything special about this boy which would have been taken notice of? And your question would be apart. For the other side of the story is not known to us as for now, and that is precisely what we would have to look into objectively. This view could be clearly understood if you could answer the following question. Was he as successful as would have been? I have known him as he was my classmate. I never found out when he studied. I put in a lot of effort to score more than him in a study. However, he always managed to stay ahead somehow. He is a very good friend of mine even today, though we haven't met for a long time now. Often people praise him for his magnificent house, while I stand at a loss of words. People see what he has, while I stand unable to find words to express his loss. He worked hard and could have worked harder, given that I would have expected him to be a country's topest physician, or maybe even amongst the best physicians in the world. But when I see him today, I feel that he was vastly confined his reservoirs of talent. Isaac Newton lost his father even before he was born. However, the boy in third story is not so unfortunate. He lost his father at 9. His grandparents failed to support him, and gradually he had to give up his studies and drop out of school as he had to support his mother, a brother, and two younger sisters. He always felt the pinch and sorrow as he had to give up education. Through these circumstances didn't permit him, he always yearned to go back to school to finish his studies. As time passed, he learned about the possibility of the appearing in the examination as a private candidate from boy who was from the city and was on a visit to the village. On hearing this, he was delighted, and finally, after a lot of struggle, he saw the horizon of brightening up for him. As he felt that he would begin his studies once again, he kept a small shop in his village from where he would load up his bicycle with a bundle of yarns, which he would sell in the weekly market of the surrounding area. Whatever the case, he always looked for an opportunity to study, and whenever he sighted one, he would not let it go. Days gave way to months, and he went on studying in a similar fashion. Undeterred, he struggled at every step, but his resolve was unshaken. In a few years, through his sheer perseverance and hard work, he completed his master's and went on to become a lecturer at a college. Later on, he completed his PhD and got through the civil services examination, receiving the honor of becoming the private secretary to the President of India. This is a story that I have known and understood quite closely and with much more precision than the other narrated by me. I do not have any more stories in my bucket to narrate now. I will be highlight the essence of all these stories. The hero of our first story was wayward. He was clueless as to how to put his talent to proper use and give them a definite channel. He never understood how to utilize his time to his advantage. He was never short of time. He had all the time in the world, but maybe when one was something in excess, one doesn't care about utilizing it judiciously. Same was the case with our hero, but ironically, it was through the game of badminton and his meeting his opponent the other day that changed the entire course of his life. He understood the reason and mastered the art of managing time, the only gallant resources he was bestowed with, and the rest, as he was known, its history. The name of the boy in second story was Jitendra Singh. God had bestowed him with an amazing power to memorize and sent him upon this earth to accomplish great things, to work wonders with his gift and help made many a life. But I don't think that he would justice to his talent. He spent a few hours studying and his talent covered up for the rest. He would sleep off for unreasonable hours and would be playing the fool most of the time. Of course, one could engage in something or the other if one had time. What matters is whether whatever on the is doing is actually a fruitful utilization of the time in hand. As a result, through he succeeded in building a political estate like that of a movie star. He never became as celebrated as the stars were. The only reason for his inability to achieve stardom was his mismanagement of time and improper utilization of his talent. The boy in our third story was always surrounded by unfavorable circumstances. If he wanted, he could have used this and as an excuse, could have been a capitalist and would have hidden behind them, Obviously, he had time constraint, but all was overcome by his unshaken will. He identified his problem, but he knew that no problem was without a solution. During his younger days, he had heard about addition and knew that in his testing time he too had to wash dishes in restaurants. Newton had worked as a waiter and Albert Einstein had to work as a clerk. If all the great peoples, given their constraints, could spare time for such wonderfully great invention, then why not him? Instead of waiting for some free time, he adopted a strategy to steal time bit by bit from his daily course of work. It was just like a game of cricket, which in which the batsman didn't wait for the right ball to strike a six. Instead, he picked up a rain on every ball, and as a rest, he could lead his team to victory. He understood how valuable his time was and respected every bit of it, utilizing it to the full. And time in turn repaid him for his sincerity and helped him to rise to such a structure that was difficult for people to realize that he was the same boy. My dear friend, I don't know what you must have thought about time or if you have ever tried to understand it, but I know that I have thought about it a lot. And so the little experiences that I have gained in the past many years, I have succeeded in understanding it to some extent. Hence, with your permission, I would like to present my view regarding time. I believe that it is time that makes life enhance. Life itself is time. I wonder if you have ever come across the word Swambhu, which means which has been used many times in our scriptures. In the word Bhu symbolizes worth, while Swam symbolizes self. Hence, the word Swambhu means something which has taken birth from itself. We use the word to describe the absolute. We use this word to describe God, who has always been and always will be, the Almighty, who is the self-productive and self-sustaining. Now, let me put forward a question to you. My question is, who gave birth to time? Who was time born? How was time born? How did it come into existence at all? We were born as a result of the union of our parents. The huge mountains gave way to fine soil on corrosions. Fire is born through friction and gives us light. Oxygen is emitted by the green plants, and coal on combustion will give carbon dioxide. Hence, it stands proof that all that is in the world can be created. But what about time? Are there certain elements on the combination of which time can be created in the similar fashion as hydrogen and oxygen combined to form water? The answer, alas, we can't find. Hence, it is proof that time is also born from itself and therefore is equivalent to the absolute. However, I take time to be greater than the absolute too. Our philosopher might have overlooked this supervening quality of time. May be that the reason behind creation of the world, Mahakal. Kal refers to the time, while Maha refers to the something greater. Hence, Mahakal means something greater than time. The Shivling at Ujjain has been referred to as a Mahakal. Isn't that the reason why instead of uses of a Sanskrit word for the absolute, which is Brahma, the prefix of Maha has been added to time so that it may give us an idea as to how great the Lord is. If we look into this Sikhism, we would come across the word Akal, which symbolizes something beyond time and uses time yet again as a scale of reference. Nobody escapes the worth of time. Even the god and their angels have submit before it. The life of the great prophet Muhammad come to the end. Krishna was shot down by approachers. Even Jesus, being one of the most pious men of all, was purified. Similarly, the lives of the all teachers and philosophers like Gautam Buddha, Guru Nanak, and Mahavira came to an end. When asked, how would the kingdom of the Father be? Jesus replied, the kingdom of the Heavenly Fathers would be one time. I hope that by now you are able to realize the supremacy and omnipresence of time. Human being cannot but submit to the supremacy of time. Be it a layman, somebody who is awfully rich or awfully poor. Time overpowers all. Isn't then time all surpassing, omniscient and omnipotent? We cannot put respect, but respect it overpowering nature and mold ourselves accordingly. We have all heard about destiny, and some of us believe that all that we are and all that we would be in future is predetermined, but I disagree. I believe that man is the maker of his own destiny. We strive, we sweat, and we work and create our own fortune, create our own destiny, and mold it with our own hand. Even the gods came to the assistance of the people who have faith in themselves, who have a will which is a gigantic to as the ocean, who take the initiative always and make their own destiny with their own able hands. People in the Western countries, especially America and Europe, have been introduced by the mystics of yoga. We see nowadays that it is a growing strength that all workplaces, be it the corporate world or be it sport, have incorporated in their daily schedule. The practice of yoga, it is sadly in the nature of us Indians that we do not accept anything that hasn't been claimed by the West. We still look for the others to appreciate the richness of our culture and wait for them to get memorized by its mysterious before we may appreciate by it ourselves, being purchased on the reservoir of knowledge. Having developed the most scientific way of mastering the human life in each and every sphere, be it war or peace, we still need others to assure us that what we have created through the passage of time, what we have protected and cherished for generations, is actually great. Always me to just make a few more clarification before I proceed. The concept of yoga refers to sacrifice and resistance for the achievement of something which is greater than what we already have. It is through controlling oneself that one realizes one's full potential. Yoga is exercising the mind and soul and achieving human excellence. It is the innate nature of human to forever improve and forever move ahead in life, to forever change and evolve into higher states of consciousness and understanding. How can such an art which teaches one to oneself and to achieve all that he wants be confined within the realms of religion's fanaticism? The art of yoga is the inventions of mankind and belongs to the mankind irrespective of his religion and irrespective of his geographical location. We may have come across the term karma yoga, jnana yoga and bhakti yoga, which relate to perfection of work, perfection of knowledge and perfection of worship. And in the perfection that leads us to salvation, I shall introduce you to an entirely new concept, that is Samaya Yoga, which is perfection of utilizing of time to the fullest. Samaya Yoga is the focal point where all the other forms of yoga, namely Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, meet. It is the point of fusion of all the other forms of yoga. Therefore, if one has mastered the art of managing time, he has mastered all. Let us try to understand his concept in depth. No moment, no segment in our lives is beyond the realms of time, whether we are awake or asleep, whether we are dreaming or using our conscious mind. Nothing can be painted by our imagination or created by our dream in the absence of the canvas of time. No matter what we imagine, even in our wildest dreams and thoughts, we cannot ignore the concept of time. Without considering time, it is almost impossible for the human brain to imagine anything. So now we understood that we are always within the realm of time. Time is always present in our lives, in the smallest of our activities and in the greatest of our ambitions. If utilized judiciously, it was undoubtedly raise us to new heights, elevate us from our misery, and place us in a new spheres of success and self-discovery. Imagine yourself sitting on the banks of a flowing river. If you are sitting and watching the water flow by, you gain nothing. It is only when you use a pitcher and fill up some water for your own users that are usually actually able to utilize the water which would otherwise flow by anyway. The more you fill up, the more water you may use. If you have understood this simple concept, then understanding the concept of time is nothing, not a piece of cake. This is just like a perennial river which is always flowing by, irrespective of whether you bathe yourself in it or stand by and watch it flow. It is not waiting for you to get your pitcher or to lift your sails, but somehow does so and makes the most of the perennial river which is perpetually flowing gains the most. So now it may be said that it is only if you utilize a particular segment of time does it truly become ours, and if we let it flow by, we gain nothing. Sama Yoga teaches us the best possible way and the most productive way by which we may utilize our time. We know that Karma Yoga teaches us the art of work and tell us about the importance of taking the initiative always. Jnana Yoga tells us how the work should be done in the best possible way. It tells us that it is not enough to plow the field and sow the seeds of our choice. If we want to reap what we have sowed, we should know what kind of soil supports which crop and in which season to harvest. That is concept behind Jnana Yoga. The third form of yoga is Bhakti Yoga, which is a form of surrender to the Almighty. This is a form of yoga in which one surrenders his being, his intellect, his ambition to the Almighty and works forever in perfection and bliss. He recognizes himself as an instrument of the Lord and gives up all the fruits of his action unto him. If we are not determined enough to achieve what we want to achieve, it is not possible to be successful. To be successful, we need to take up an idea and make that idea our life. We need to surrender ourselves, our intellect, our dreams and our being into the ideas and leave every other ideas alone. When we feel this idea in every muscles and every cells of our body, when we feel it rushing through our veins, and when we feed our mind on the ideas always, all obstacles are overcome and entire universe unites to give up what we want. Working with intensity is the latest concept and also the most ancient one. We are not looking for hours of slogging, but we are actually looking for an quality work And as we all know, quality and intensity go hand in hand. We have heard of the greatest people in history, the people who have changed the course of humanity. The stories of the lives of these few people actually constitute our history. In their lifetime, they lived in the life of entire human race and forever changed its course. What was the element of difference in these people? It was intensity in the work and vitality in their action. Thus, Bhakti Yoga tells us that increasing intensity will reduce the time taken to complete a piece of work. Samaya Yoga is a combination of all these forms of yoga mentioned above. It is a practice which unites all the other practices and gets the best from them. So, if we have mastered this art of managing time, we have mastered it all. How fascinating is this? How very amazing. My friends, I am confident that if you are able to understand the nature of time now, its relevance and indispensability and honesty, try to implement whatever this book has to teach you. Success and happiness could come knocking at your doorstep. Let us all be Samaya Yogis in the truest sense of the term. Let us manage our time so effectively and with such efficiency that we may achieve whatever we dream of. Let us realize at this point that for us everything is possible. We are splendid creatures bonding with potential and possibilities. All the success, all the glory, all the happiness, and all the wealth and well-being in the world can be achieved by us in this life only if we learn and master the art of managing time. Let me give you a few examples regarding how proper management of time is one of the essential ingredients which lead to success. For instance, let us take the case of Thomas Alva Edison. If we ever come across his biography, we would realize how managing one's time and utilizing the time in hand to the fullest can lead to life-changing achievements. Edison was like an average boy of his age, only that his intellect was supposedly lower. When he packed his bags and came to Detroit, he wondered how could utilize his time effectively. He used to bring along with him vegetables and greens, which he would carry in a train and sell them of the little profits in the city. When he returned from his work every day, he often enjoyed a few hours of free time. Even while traveling the train, he had a little to do. Hence, he began to wonder how to put his ideal time to proper use. He joined a club in Detroit so that he could have access to the books there and hence his knowledge. Furthermore, he joined in as a paper boy in the railways company and began to sell newspapers during his journey in the train. Not only did he sell newspapers from which he could earn, he also became entitled to get a free pass for traveling in the train. But now the problem was that he could only sell newspapers when the train would stop at the station. Then how was he utilized his time in the train? When it was on the run, what he did was, in the time he had between two stations, he began experimenting and tried to invest new devices. Don't you think that Edison utilized his time in the best possible way? And thanks to the equality, he was able to invent such wonderful things and rise to such heights. By the time he died at the age of 84 in the year of 1931, there were more than 1500 patents against his name in America and abroad. Can you come up with the name of any other scientist who has these many patents against his name? I don't think that is even worth trying, as there none. At the age of 25, Alexander Graham Bell took up the principalship of a school of the deaf in Boston. Utilizing his ideal time, he experienced with the harmonic telegraph and continuing with his efforts, succeeding in investing in the first telephone. All of us have heard about the Wilbur Wright and Orville Wright, the famous Wright brothers, to whom mankind owns the first flight. When they got bored of selling bicycle, they began to manufacture them and co-founded the Wright Cycle Company. In their ideal time, they would engage themselves in the study of literature pertaining to aeronautics. As a result, within a few years, they were able to invest the first aeroplane. It is this invention which saves the time of millions today and was revolutionized modern transport. Coming back to the stories, I had narrated to you this beginning to this chapter. The boy in our story was Sirish Sinha, who begins in nobody, rose to achieve a lot more than was expected from him. The boy in the second story was Jitendra Singh, who could have been seen one of the best in the world in his field, but eventually confirmed his talent to be a limited area. The third boy, who was faced by different obstacles and testing times, to rose up to achieve great heights. These three stories prove an essential point here, that is, many a time average people with no extraordinary talents rise to much higher spheres in life than to talented people ever would, provided that they learn how to manage their time.